Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome to Midnight Mandela. So, kind of a quiet week, and it looks like it's going to be quiet on the show too because I don't see too many people on here. Um, Preliminals on, Shari D, and Jonar Games, Crunchy Bee. That's probably like the least amount of people in forever. Just about. And it's been a real quiet Mandela week, too. I don't have a lot. Shari said there's something going on with time, so feel free to elaborate. July is finally gone. Got us. I can't read that. Nowadays are as long as before ME. Oh, so for you, days are as long as ME, as before ME. I would not say that they're that long now for me, but they are. This month has been longer seeming, or like last month, I should say, than a while. Jumping ships in, Lord Fryby's in, John Austin's in. So some people running in a little bit later. Okay, so I don't have a ton of them this week. It's been quiet, but I did find this one. One of the reasons I was laughing at this one is I was at pickleball earlier today, and an ant crawled on me and immediately bit me. So I think we might be back to the timeline where ants bite really hard. I was the last year or two they haven't, and then before that they were biting really hard, and then before that they were incapable of biting humans. So I think it was last year I was saying that I looked it up and they said ants can bite humans, but they almost never do. Well, that seems to have changed because the ants have been very little around this year. We have not seen a lot of them. But that was probably the first ant that's been on me since last year, and it bit immediately. So anyway, I saw this thing and I was kind of laughing. Cicadas may be gone, but here comes itch mites causing mysterious bites in Washington, D.C. So locally, last year we got these day-biting mosquitoes that really suck. And it does seem that when something rolls in that I suspect is maybe new or maybe a Mandela, there's like a cajillion of them, and it's like really harsh. And that's what happened when these mosquitoes came in. Is that year, which was last year, they there were so many of them, and they bit so like it's so itchy. So usually you'd think if something's new to the area, they wouldn't be that many of them, but no, it was like the reverse. They roll in and there's jillions of them. So now they've got this new itchy mite for Washington, D.C. Unfamiliar bites that cause painful itching, welts, and concern. Okay, so the story that they're giving is that these are oak leaf itch mites known as pyomotes, which are causing the bite. Typically feed off larvae on oak leaves. Okay, so this mite that normally just feeds on larvae now is jumping on people and biting them because like larvae and humans are so similar. It used to be that stuff that fed on larvae just fed on larvae, but so they're blaming it on the cicadas of all things. They're saying that these larvae have come down to feed on the cicada eggs, and then somehow they're still somehow jumping up on humans and biting them. I want to let people know they're not crazy. It's a phenomena related to cicadas being there, and it will dissipate. And eventually you won't have it next year because the cicadas will not be emerging. So, but then you should still, if you get near an oak tree with larvae on it, shouldn't these itch mites still bite you? Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me. And then people should be familiar with the idea that they can get bit if they're near oak trees, but nobody ever heard of it. So, I don't know. Nothing really makes sense anymore. Hundreds of people Facebook friending me lately, huh? That's kind of weird. Large lab-made insect herd releases, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. every day was as long as 2 days. Peculiar thing, I have received stuff that were supposed to come between 15 to 30 August, end of July, at least 2 weeks earlier. There's another, speaking of shipments, there's another thing that's really irritating lately is that, as some of you probably know, I ship stuff for a living, and so I've been doing it for about 11 years now. So should be fairly familiar with how USPS works, right? So I've been boxing everything pretty much the same way for 11 years with very minimal problems. And then I noticed the middle of last year, packages started bouncing back and forth. Like they would go partway their destination, then partway back, then partway back, bounce, bounce, bounce. Finally make it. So, what can I say to customers is just, well, sometimes, USPS made a mistake. So I kind of blamed it on COVID and maybe because their shipping lines were so messed up. I'm like, maybe they're shipping it back and taking an alternate route. And then when they kind of redid, when Trump redid the standards and requirements and everything late last year, I thought, well, maybe that's contributing to it. And it was weird because when Trump did that change right before the election, and everybody's like, oh, they're doing it to mess up the election or whatever. And everybody at the post office was all the workers were all pissed off. They're like, oh, they're messing up our system, and we had it all down, and now all the mail's backed up, and sniff, 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 cry, cry. And I don't know how it works back there, so I took their word for it. So I went in a couple days ago, and I mentioned it to one of them. I go, oh, so did you ever straighten out that mess when they redid some of the rules at the USPS? And suddenly none of them have any idea what I was talking about. They're like, there's been no changes at all. And I go, well, didn't Trump, people redo? No, they don't know anything about it. There's been no change. So that was weird. Okay, so the other thing is, more and more of these packages were bouncing back and forth that I shipped, and it was becoming more and more of a problem. And then I looked into it, and I talked to some postal people, and they said, well, if you have your label folded, so like say it's a small package and the label doesn't fit, so you partially fold it, and they said if the shipping address and the return address are on opposite sides, then at some of the locations, the automatic scanner will get confused, and they'll think that the shipping location is they'll reverse the shipping and the receiving. So then it'll send it back towards the shipper if it gets confused. So the only solution is have the label all on one side. And I'm like, but that's not been a problem for 10 years. And they're like, oh, no, it's always been a problem. I'm like, no, I checked the tracking. And they swear that these are old systems. And they're swearing that now, over time, it's getting better, not worse. So I don't know if I've shipped it into a timeline where USPS is stupider. They have outdated equipment. Because, a lot of people fold the label, and so every package that has a folded label risks bouncing back. So they're saying that not every location has that outmoded a system, but still it's happening a lot. So I don't know, do I have to put everything in giant boxes or giant envelopes now, or am I going to shift out of this dumbness? I don't know what. I'm like, it's really bugging me now, this last shift. So and that's probably not a real recent one. I think it's been going on for at least a month now with the USPS bouncing. "52 states of America." That was a Mandela for a lot of people, but it wasn't for me. There was a few Mandelas from the beginning I never saw, and that was one of them. The other one is the dead Tiananmen guy. He didn't die for me, but he did die for a lot of people. If you guys remember 52 states, can anybody say what the other 2 states were? Because so far nobody can remember which 2 states are missing. Did I hear about the guy from Alberta winning the court about the sea? No, I'll have to check that. Okay, the court said there's no evidence of sea. I was trying to sort that out earlier today. It kind of sounds like the court actually said that they saw no reason to subpoena those people that he wanted to subpoena to get the information he wanted to get. I didn't quite clearly say, like, it was kind of weird because it's like they were saying, well, they don't have to give it to you, or if they don't have it, then there's no sense subpoenaing them. It didn't exactly say that the evidence doesn't exist. It said that those people in particular don't have it. I do think it's really suspicious that certain data has not been barfed up, divulged. I do think it's highly suspicious. However, I don't think that court case exactly said that. I think the conspiracy theorists have taken a little more out of that court case than it actually said. So I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens on that. It is a very interesting development, the way it's kind of turned a little bit. So C, yeah, it's the arm pokes. You can't say the whole word because then the algorithms will find us, and they do have verbal hunting programs as well. You can't say anything, and the whole show could get suddenly deleted. Puerto Rican, yeah, Puerto Rico and Guam are territories. I wonder if in some places they were states, because I can ship to Puerto Rico. And I think, I know for sure Puerto Rico, I don't have to pay additional shipping to Puerto Rico. And that's another thing that I don't remember being the case. I think like 10 years ago, Puerto Rico was still out of country, and I had to pay out of country prices to ship there. But lately, it's coming in as I can ship there for $3 if it's under, 13 ounces or something. It just, the normal prices, it's not much. So that's weird. Now, Guam was like that. I remember Guam being that you could ship for a normal cost, but I don't remember Puerto Rico until the last few years. You still remember 3-chambered human hearts? Yes, I do. It was 3-chambered human hearts for me, and for the animals, it was 2 chambers. And humans were all special because we had 3. Of course, now everybody has 4, but that actually is a big Mandela for me. And it was such a thing because there's like, oh, humans are so special because we have 3 chambers. So that whole storyline doesn't work anymore because everybody has 4. BitChute video. Okay, if I click on that, it better not have any C stuff on it because otherwise it's bad for the show. So just let me know, Shari, if it's safe for me to click on that. Okay, yeah, you guys can click on it, but I'm not going to click on that. There was some interesting, speaking of censorship, I got my first email blocked. So I guess they're censoring emails now, according to their algorithms. So somebody sent me a link, and it was to a court case. It was just a copy of a court case that had to do with the sea. That's all it was. There was no commentary or anything. It was like, here's this court case that somebody has filed. A legal document. It wasn't hearsay. I mean, you could argue that some of the stuff they allege on the filing might, they could say wasn't, you could argue. But it was a legal document, and they sent me a link to it going, check out this court case. And it was bounced. The email was bounced. Now, they did tell her that they bounced it. And the reason was this cannot be delivered because of something like that. And then the term was policy, something policy, like policy standards, something like that. It's policy. So I looked up the error message, and they basically said that you can't send any links. Now, see, this is the weird thing, because it wasn't sent from that site. It was just, that site was linked. So it was reading the text and reading the link. And historically, they will block, like, say, a website is a no spammer, or it has a virus, or it's, a hacker or something. They would block those, but now they're calling this location that has this copy of this legislation or lawsuit, they're calling it an untrusted site. And you can't send that link now to that information. So suddenly it's not just hackers and scammers, it's anything they say is an untrusted site. You cannot send in an email. And that was, my email is Yahoo. So it may not be all emails, but, and they did tell her they bounced it. I don't know if that'll always be the case in the future. That will they always tell her? She might have, if she could have sent that and assumed I got it, and I never did. But they did bounce it, so. Dr. Evil now has bushy eyebrows. Really? Oh, John Austin came from 2 chambers heart. That's interesting. The liver now in 2 sections. Yes, I watched that happen about 5 years ago. It was right when I first came to the Mandela. And it was, they were talking about how the heart had gotten really, the liver had gotten really big. And it was just, I saw a dotted line on the liver one day. And it was in lots of the photos. And then over the course of 3 days, it split. That was very trippy for me because I was new to the Mandela. And it was right before my eyes. Literally within the course of just a few days, it made the split on all the... And I would look at like 100 images, and I would, so it wasn't just one image. Cows have 4 stomachs. We're like a community of torrid travelers. Yeah. I don't know, it's like the further you travel, you meet more travelers, but they're not from your hometown, and it kind of feels like that with the Mandela. I meet other travelers from other Earth versions from far away, but I don't really see my Earth version so much anymore. So yeah, censoring emails, basically, that's exactly it. And it may be the tip of the iceberg. I'd like to see it not get worse, but... So she was able to get around that by, she put it into a PDF file and sent me the PDF file. But, I don't know how sophisticated it'll get, but... Okay, cows had 3 stomachs. Dang, I'm not sure on that, how many stomachs cows had. I actually am not sure. I know they had a lot, but I won't swear. I don't think they had 2 stomachs. It was 3 or 4. All right, let's go look at this Dr. Evil thing. Dr. Evil. Load, 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 load. Yeah, everything's a little slow. Actually, Mini-Me looks the weirdest. Okay, so, yeah, they do look more than I remember. That's interesting. So, the old Mandela was the scar. People just didn't remember, like, that giant scar on the face. I don't remember the eyebrows that bushy. Let's look at Mini-Me. Yeah. Mini-Me. This won't be as big a photo. Let's see. Looks a little more bushy than I remember. I actually remember, Mini-Me's like, a youngster, a baby. You kind of expect less eyebrow. Let's see how big. I'm trying to find a big image so you could see it. Now that I need a big image of Mini-Me, I can't find one. Alright, maybe here. Somehow, I don't think this is going to be a big one either. Oh, you know what? I think that's just, it is not humans, it's plastic. Okay, here we go. Not sure if that's from the movie. Having trouble here. Alright, maybe this one. No, that's gonna be tiny. Yep. I don't know, just from a distance, the eyebrows on the baby look more, the mini-me look more creepy to me. The trouble is I'm not finding a big image so you can really see the mini-me. You guys might have to kind of look on your own. I'm just not. Sometimes when there's a Mandela, it's very hard to find big photos of things. I mean, that's literally the best one I'm finding, and it's tiny. And it won't load. So yeah, I don't know. It does look more bushy, but that's not one I would like stake my life on. I just didn't know the show that well, so that's part of the problem. Frankly, I looked at it a lot last time because of the scar. Thanksgiving on the third Sunday of November. No, that's not right, right? Not the third Sunday. No, you're joking, right? Thanksgiving 2021. Yeah, Thanksgiving Day, Thursday, November 25. You're messing with me. It's still Thursday. I remember it on the Thursday though. It was the third Thursday, not the third Sunday. So yeah, I agree. I do think that probably Dr. Evil and Mini-Me's eyebrows are more. The Britney Spears court case flip-flop for me last week. Yeah, I think I heard you talking about it on Retcon. Was that you? Let's see if I remember right. You said you remember her losing the case, but then she won the case. So, I mean, hopefully that's good. Stuff like Britney Spears is hard for me to really know for sure because I don't know her and I don't know the other people, and she seems like she should be in good enough shape to run her own stuff, but I really just don't know because I don't know her, so. Yeah, I kind of remember, like Shari, I don't remember there being a prominent eyebrows. And actually the mini-me looks the creepiest to me. Because now with the eyebrows so delineated, the mini-me actually looks more like a baby now because the eyebrow shape to me is weird. Idiocracy was an okay movie. It wasn't great. Idiocracy is like a cult classic. It's like, you don't watch it because it was a good movie. You watch it because it's a corny, silly movie. And if you go in knowing it's a corny, silly movie, then you can have a good time. But the other thing about Idiocracy is that disturbingly coming true in the recent era with like the ridiculous on TV and stuff. I mean, when I watched that movie, I was like, maybe in 100 years things will be like that. I didn't think it'd be like a few more years. I saw the interviews about Britney losing the case. Huh, interesting. Hopefully this is a better timeline, right? Moon was never out in the daylight for me until maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Wow, that's okay. So when did I first see it? I think, yeah, actually, it was about 10 years ago for me. It's been a while. So at first it would only come out near sunset. So it was just like a little early. So it went gradual, like. And then it shifted over time. And then, okay, so people, let's see. So in her music video, there is no headset on Britney Spears. Now, I don't know on that Mandela because I just didn't really watch her. I didn't watch that stuff, so I don't know. I'll have to take your word for it. And I don't want to play it because if I accidentally play any of her song, it's like instant copyright strike. So it's coming true only in America. Yeah. Well, it was a show about America. Okay, so it didn't cover the rest of the world. So I don't think it said what happened to the rest of the world. So I can say it's coming true, and that does not include the rest of the world. That's my cop out on that one. I actually think the average IQ has gone up. You do? Okay. Okay, I've kind of covered this before. I actually think that amongst people I meet in real life that I actually know are humans and not Matrix whatever, I feel like the outliers, like the extreme ends, have kind of pushed towards the middle. So people that I used to deal with that were really not very smart at all seem to have gotten smarter. But people I knew that were really smarter than me, like I really looked up to them, like this person is really smart, they seem like they got less smart. Like they seem like they're missing a lot of stuff now, and I'm like, did you not think of this, and so it seems like people have, maybe there's more egalitarianism there, less dumb people, less genius people. But I do feel like people are more subject to brainwashing, though. Like they just, yes, man, on the TV. I don't know. Maybe some of that is me just waking up to it, but it just seems like, they stuff the news said last month, and then they completely reverse it, and I'm like, but they said the opposite last month, and people don't even remember last month. So it's like they're brainwashed to not think of stuff or something. So that's not smart. Britney's miniskirt was supposed to be red tartan and not black. Yeah, I'll take your word for it. Seems like a fair number of people were agreeing on that Britney one, though. The IQ level official one is lower than in my original timeline. Okay, it's not still 100? Was it 100 the average IQ? And that's why they said it that way? They got the average IQ and set it at 100, I thought. The average IQ on many tests is 100, and 68% of scores lie somewhere between 85 and 115. I'm not sure about that second bit, but I do remember the average IQ score was 100. IQ tests are made to have an average score of 100. Psychologists revise the test every few years in order to maintain 100 as the average. Okay, so that's how I remember it being. Now, as for how smart you are, if you have 100, I can't speak to that one. I mean, I don't remember all the individual test questions and stuff. So, you just want to say people seem dumber. I think they seem a lot more suggestible than I remember. Just agreeing with the TV and stuff. So they do okay as long as you don't go against the narrative that they've got in their head. They just seems like they have more tolerance for stuff that doesn't um, they have conflicting attitudes and beliefs in their mind at once. You try to point out that this conflicts with this, and they just, get mad or whatever. It just seems like there's a lot more of that. A lot of people seem to forget the past very fast. And also, yes, it seems like a lot of people are complaining like brain fog and can't concentrate. So they're starting to blame it on the sea, all the problems since 2020. But it was even before that people, like I said before, I don't even remember the word brain fog being a thing until the last few years. You maybe you're tired, I can't think, but they didn't have that word brain fog for me. Yeah, Shari, I know. Just watch what your terms there, because I don't know how sensitive the algorithms are. But yeah, I know people are not seeing the conflicting evidence and the flip flops and all that's been going on since 2020. And it's not just with the sea, but also with politics. You'll see the politicians, and they both do this, both sides. They'll say this is a horrible thing, and then like 2 months later they do the same thing, and then they'll act like they never said it was horrible, and they're all doing it. They used to be somewhat fishy, but they were more subtle about it. Now they just say one thing, they say the complete opposite. They're saying going to do this, they do the complete opposite. It just seems like it's really ramped up, and people who follow these political figures, they just then, instead of admitting it, they just make excuses for it. Oh no, but so and so over here did worse. Or I mean, you would think they go, okay, well, I like this politician, but yeah, I admitted he flip flopped, and I don't like that or something. But nope, they can't even admit one thing wrong with it. Somebody they never even met, that only saw on TV, that doesn't even write his own scripts for his own speeches, and they'll fight tooth and nail for this person, this totally unknown character on TV. I had brain fog all my life. Now I don't. Huh, interesting. So I've been doing vitamin B1 has been helping a lot with my brain fog, a lot. Just like a couple times a day, a little bit, like six milligrams or something. Just a little bit, a little bit, a lit. That's helping me a ton, and I don't know if it'll help everybody else, but B1 is very often lacking and deficient in people, and it's helping me a lot. The other thing I am trying now is called Alcar, Alcar, and that's basically a form of carnitine, which is a nutrient. But it is known to clear up brain fog, and it's really helping me. Now, I haven't been doing it very long, but I feel a lot better this last couple weeks because of that. So, they're just they're available on Amazon. They're basically just nutrients. For some people, they do nothing, and there's always a chance that you won't even like them. So I always say, if you're going to try something, try a small amount first, see how it goes. One thing, strange thing I notice is people will say one thing and then very shortly after say the exact opposite. Yeah, even in real life, they won't be cognizant of it. They won't have memory of the other thing. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on. The other weird thing I've been seeing, and I don't know, it's starting to affect my store, is that, so I'll go through and I'll answer all of the comments and stuff that people send me, like messaging. Yeah, basically messages. So people will send me messages like, how long is this product, or what is, how much does it weigh, or do you have more of them, or whatever. I answer all these product questions. So I go through and I answer every last one. Like, say, today, before I come here, I answer all of them. I know that they're all answered because they're bold-faced when they're unanswered, and then they're regular text when they're answered. I check all the way down, going back 3 days. I've answered them all. So what's been happening is that I go back the next day, and it's been under 24 hours, and I will look, and there'll be a batch of them from 2 to 3 days ago that I didn't answer. Like, but I checked back 3 days, sometimes more. I'll check back because this problem's been happening enough that I've been checking back further and further to make sure they're all answered. One thing I never do is delete those suckers, because every now and then I need to go way back and see what I said to somebody like a month or a year ago. Like, sometimes they'll say, oh, give me more of the same, and it was like a year ago. So I just keep all those. But it's just weird, as I swear that I answered them all, and 12 hours from now I can come and it can say I missed ones from 2 days ago. It's like, that's impossible unless some glitch in the Etsy system. But I've never had this problem before. I mean, like, what the heck, And then it's started happening with orders. So, like, 2 days ago, I checked all the orders, and I there's certain things I have to get ready, and there's certain things my assistant does. So I go through them, and I go through them multiple times, scrolling through. Okay, make sure I didn't miss. I got all those. Did I get? Yes, I got. So I got them all ready, and then my coworker ships them all, and I look, and there's a bunch of them from 3 days ago, and there shouldn't be. We should be all caught up until maybe just the last few very recent orders. There was a bunch. There was like 5 of them from 3 days ago unshipped. I'm like, they landed from outer space. I never saw them before. I scrolled through that thing so many times. So now I'm, almost late on like a bunch of orders from 3 days ago. So I don't know if Etsy's just lost its freaking mind, or these things are just showing. I don't know what's going on, but it's like, I'm going crazy. Unimundi has a color spectrum change on Sweden. I see changes there. Hang on, Greenland's melting fast. Okay. So Unimundi is another channel, and he's just got really interested in, like, he feels that a lot of things are getting blue tinged. So I really won't dispute his overall concept, because I do feel like lighting has kind of changed, and a natural lighting used to be a warm tone. And a couple years ago, I noticed that it was kind of this cold tone was natural lighting. And I was like, what? No, it was always warm tone. So natural lighting is now cold tone, like kind of an icy tone. And so that would bluify, that would kind of make a lot of old video look more bluish. So interestingly, like a few years ago, there was some commentary on a trend in anime, that they were making everything really kind of blue toned, and I just like, why would they do that? I don't know, whatever. But now I kind of look back at that and go, was it related? I don't know. I am changing timelines like a champion. Yeah, do we get like a gold medal at the end of this race? I don't know. Hopefully it's happiness at the end. I sure hope so. My YT notifications aren't staying at the top and will be lost in the notification feed unless I search down. Yeah, YT notifications have been horrible anyway for years. Oh, and you said something about Greenland melting. Yeah, Greenland's getting very green. I don't know, when we finally arrive, and maybe it'll be totally green. It used to be very icy. Yeah, so Greenland used to be icy and Iceland was fairly green. So maybe that's reversing now, I think. Everything old or new looks green screen now. Yeah, I've noticed that. I don't know, it's like green screens. So first, a lot of video feeds started looking really green screened since COVID. But I'm like, oh, they're cheating. They're just green screening it. But then I'm even just looking at photos and stuff, and that all looks green screen. I'm like, are these all fake? Um, I don't know. There's just a lot of the imagery just looks fake now. I noticed in recent weeks the sun got more LED light like by looking at how it shines on the birch trees. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it's going. I know a lot of people said they sunburned easier, but actually I'm the reverse. I'm almost getting impossible. I started taking B vitamins and I was already heading that way, that I was having trouble. I was like losing my ability to tan. And then when I started taking the B vitamins, I can't get a freaking tan. So I'm like really pasty faced right now, because usually I have my summer skin, which is kind of tanned. I can't get a tan. I'm not burning. I'm just like white, like chalk. This is like my midwinter chalky face. So it's kind of weird. I'm like turning into this pale face, but I don't burn. That's what's weird. I was out in the really hot straight sun for like 3 hours in the back, and I'm so white. I'm thinking I'm gonna get a burn. I didn't. And the back of my neck, there was barely even a freaking tan on it. My face was not even like reddish. Because usually I'll get a little pink, and then maybe by the morning it'll be tan, but I didn't get any of it. So yeah, I agree the sun's real white, but so I don't know, there seems to be a lot of shifts and I'm thinking it might be genetic shifts. Maybe I'm just, from a little bit different genetics than I had before. Okay, so wow, managed to talk for 45 minutes about like nothing. All right, so let's go to smart animals, shall we? Whoops. And we'll call this shit. I think we need to find, oh, here, this is it. Okay, so the mirror test, list of animals that passed the mirror test. So there didn't used to be many animals that passed it. We were like special. Us and the great apes, that was it. So the mirror test is basically when you look in the mirror, can you figure out that that image is you and not some other animal? So like when this elephant looks in the mirror and sees that elephant, does it know that that's it, that it's itself? So what they do is they put a spot or some like bright marker on the animal, and they tell by series of tests whether if they see the spot on the animal's like side or hip or something that's in the mirror, will they look over at their own hip and go, what's on my hip? And so I do remember a little while back they said elephants passed the mirror test, but that was like it, because it used to be just the great apes. But now all kind of stuff was passing it. So elephants, the great apes, yes. Bottlenose dolphins, orca whales, okay, maybe they hadn't tried those yet. But now they're saying Eurasian magpies passed it. I don't know, magpies are like geniuses lately, because they were just obnoxious birds before, but now they can talk, they passed the mirror test. So this one really got my goat, because now they're saying ants can pass the mirror test. Freaking ants. Scientists published research that suggests some ants can recognize themselves when looking in a mirror, when viewing other ants through glass, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so yeah, they passed it. promising candidates, manta rays. Okay, well, maybe they never looked at that. The other thing is, though, I swear my cat, I didn't totally do the official test, but it really looks like my cat can pass the mirror test. Because I think I said before, I had bought this mirror and I just leaned it against a chair in the living room to hang up later, and the cat would walk by and he saw himself, and instead of getting mad or doing any cat-like hissing, he immediately like showed off his whole body and put his butt around and was like inspecting his whole self in this mirror. Like he was just showing, oh, I can finally see my butt, you know, and all this. And he was looking with great interest. Then he started grooming himself and looking in the mirror as he groomed and everything. So I think he might have been able to pass it. He's a little bit smarter. See, there was none of this screaming. So that wasn't that long ago, like a year ago. So would he have passed the mirror test in the old days? I have my doubts. In fact, this is the first cat that didn't snarl at himself in the mirror that I've ever had. And, you know, you'd think he would at least look disturbed. No, he was cool as a cucumber, so he understands mirrors. Now, I've had cats that hissed and snarled at first and then totally ignored the mirror later. I've never had a cat that inspected themselves in the mirror, and not on the first try. Now, he is a stray, so he might have had mirror experience in the past, but he figured it out immediately. He was just a little shocked for a second, and then he's like, oh, that's me. What if we are infinitely creative beings, and I think we are, and this life is like us sleeping and taking a break and letting reality create for us based on what we want without us having to use so much creative power? I don't know about that last bit. I mean, I suspect that this life actually might be a challenging situation, and that the break is when we're done from here. That's, could be wrong, but the rise in veganism will be causing decline in active B12, which will cause brain damage. Not just B12, but B1 is also extremely important for brain function. And B1 is blocked by so many things: coffee, tea, quercetin, polyphenols, tannins, alcohol, raw fish, so sushi. I'm missing some of them, but sulfur. B1's blocked by everything, and heat and radiation and light will all kill it. I think that's most of them, but I suspect B1 is becoming more of a problem now. Everybody's drinking coffee with everything. You know, if you take your you take your multivite with a swig of coffee, there goes the B1 out of that multivite. You're not getting it. Same thing with you. So the other sources are super leafy greens. Nobody hardly ever eats those, except for the vegans. But if they have tea with their salad, that's it. No B1. And meat, but they're irradiating meat now to kill germs. So that's killing a lot of the thiamine off of meat. And they used to fortify more things like breakfast cereals and stuff, but I've noticed that they've kind of dialed back on that. And then with the gluten-free, if you're gluten-free, you're not eating breakfast cereals, then you're not going to get your thiamine there either. The other thing I've really noticed is that used to be if you went to the store, and I thought it was a law that they had to fortify table salt with iodine, but it's no longer any kind of law. They don't have to fortify table salt with iodine. Used to be the only salt that didn't have the iodine was special salt for like the swimming pool. You weren't going to be eating it, or for pickling, because I think you can't have iodine in the pickling salt. But normal table salt had to have iodine, but it doesn't anymore. And if you look in the store, most of the stuff you see doesn't have it now, at least in my local store. So we actually had to put out some effort to find the iodine salt. I think that might be a rule change, but I just kind of wonder how many Americans are not getting their iodine now, because salt in commercial foods apparently, from what I read, is usually not fortified with iodine, just cheaper. And we don't eat a lot of like algae and stuff, like sea greens. Americans don't. Most Americans don't eat a lot of that, and that's another source of iodine. But we're not a big eater of that kind of stuff. And then if you're not getting in the salt, so iodine's another one to watch out for. Make sure your salt's got the iodine. Eat some nori. That's that seaweed. Happens to me too at work. I suddenly see a mail a couple days ago. I couldn't have missed that. Yeah, see, and that didn't used to happen. I mean, a year ago, I didn't have problems like that. And it started happening like more and more. I'm like, I'm going insane. Is Etsy gone insane? So usually it was just messages, but now it's been orders. I'm like, where did these 5 orders come from? Some of them had to be custom made too, so that's one thing and one of them was a really weird custom that I don't do a lot, and so I wouldn't have missed that one. I'd be like, oh, somebody actually ordered one of those. I should stop shifting. It's confusing. Yeah, I don't know. I hate to say I don't want to because I don't know the purpose. So, or maybe we don't have a choice. I don't know. I mean, I want to if it's good for me, but I don't want if it's bad for me, I guess, is basically it. That's the orders I'm putting out into the universe. Blue light is about 5100 Kelvin. White is about 4100. Warm is about 2700 Kelvin. 5100 was supposed to be daylight temp, but I don't know what it would be now. I don't know. See, I don't know those hundreds things. I just know that it used to look warm. Because, I paint houses, so I was always very careful about the lighting and how it looked. And I could just look at the light bulb and know, that's warm, and now I know they're not. But I also remember them saying warm was the natural, and now they don't say that. So there's been a big I was actually really confused. This is probably an older Mandela, though. It was a while back, but I went, and I always thought I knew the answer to this for 40-something years. I'm like, I know this. And I get down to the Home Depot, and I'm like, what? Wait. No, that's not natural. I'm like, who's saying that's natural? That's not natural lighting. I'm thinking the business, the company is stupid. I find it in other places. I'm like, what? That's not right. I hear that Schumann resonance has increased from normal 7.83 hertz to 11 something hertz. This electromagnetic resonance interacts with our brain waves. Could be, I'll tell you, 20 years ago, I never heard of Schumann resonance. And maybe 10 years ago, they said, oh, did you know that the Earth has a resonance? And that was all we heard. The Earth has we just kind of figured out that it has a resonance. And then few years later, I started hearing this. The resonance that Earth has is called Schumann. Okay. And then suddenly now and you know what? Then for a while it was Schumann resonance, but now it's Schumann resonances. There's a bunch of them. I've covered that one too. So for me, it's a Mandela that's been growing because officially the Schumann resonances have been around a lot longer than I remember them being around. Yes, Mini-Me was a baby. I mean, Mini-Me was a baby, but not a baby is kind of how I thought of it. But now he really looks like a creepy baby with big eyebrows. Actually, Lugol solution is the... Yeah, I got some Lugol solution, and once in a while I put a few drops in one of my drinks. You don't really taste it in there at all. So I know I've got enough iodine. 'Cause I was a little bit worried about it. Nothing has changed, so I don't think I was iodine deficient. I didn't notice anything. But every now and then I really crave seafood. And I've noticed that when that happens, if I put a few drops of the Lugol's iodine in there, then I stop craving it. So they could be just needed a little bit more. I've kind of not eaten as much salt and stuff lately too, so. Electrolytes. Yes, I do drink electrolytes. So I have electrolytes, and then it has a little flavoring, and then I drop some other stuff in, like Lugol sometimes. You don't need a lot of iodine, but you do want to have some. Yeah, it should look it up a lot. Eliza POW. It's Schumann resonances now. Schumann. So I'm just going to put resonance, and then we'll see what we find. Resonance wiki. Because if it's not resonances, I'm going to, yeah, there we go. Because that's going to be a flip-flop if that S is not on there. So I typed in Schumann resonance, but when you look at the wiki, it's Schumann resonances. Schumann resonances are a set of spectrum peaks in ELF portion of the Earth's electromagnetic field spectrum. Schumann resonances are global electromagnetic resonances generated exciting by lightning discharges in the cavity formed by the Earth's surface in the ionosphere. Okay, that's still the same. Except for that it's resonances. It's the same as last time I looked. That bit. So I suspect it's a Mandela because when it went from resonance to resonances, I'm like, all right, that's it. I don't use the normal salt anymore, only sea salt and Himalayan salt. So yeah, I was looking at that. So they say that sea salt and Himalayan salt has micronutrients like trace minerals, but they don't add iodine, and how much is in there is really open to question. So maybe it's in there naturally, or maybe it's not. They're not required to tell you. I haven't been able to figure it out. So you may not be getting your iodine. So I think, technically we're really supposed to be getting our iodine from like fish and those like seaweeds and stuff. But if you don't eat a lot of those, you might want to just supplement a little bit, because it's really questionable how much is in sea salt. I actually like the big pieces of salt, like instead of the little tiny grains, and I was able to find some that have the iodine in it. They have to add the iodine to the salt, special salt. In the USA, I remember that they had to, but I looked into it, and now they've never had to. And the reason I looked into it is because we noticed that the store did not have iodized salt. And I'm like, look, this salt you bought doesn't have iodine in it. And Dave's like, what? And now the last time I went, I actually had to hunt for one that had iodine in it on the shelf. 90% of them did not have it. I don't like Himalayan salt. I don't know why. Doesn't feel right. Yeah, I don't know. There's been some mumblings that that some of the salts might be just contaminated, like with a lot of heavy metals and stuff. So I don't know. It's really hard to tell, because if some other purveyors of salt may just spread that rumor so that you'll buy less of the enemy product, and so unless you have actually looked at the actual lab values yourself, and compared them. It's really hard to figure it out. The formula was in the private sector and the government took it over. They put just enough in salt to keep people from getting goiters. Yeah, but you know what? Like I said, I looked it up and now they don't have to. And there's been no change in the law that I can find. And if you go to the store and read the big salt containers, most of them don't have it now. So they don't have to now. That's for dang sure. Ever heard of black Hawaiian salt? I just heard of that like 2 weeks ago, actually, when I was looking up the salt stuff. I'd never heard of it before, the black salt. Before the, then. I've never heard of it. So black salt, it had like spices and stuff in it. It sounded kind of tasty, actually. Blue Persian salt. I've not heard of the blue Persian salt. Do you know those, the salt mountains? I've had those on before. As a Mandela, and I think they've gotten prettier since last I showed. So I don't remember there being a bunch of above ground beautiful salt mountains. Just, I thought you had to mine for them, you had to dig for them. But now not only do they have these mountains of salt, but they're really pretty with trace minerals. So these mountains here, these are all salt mountains with different colors. They didn't mine these, they just stick up on their own. I don't remember there being these colored mountains. So these ones seem like they're getting brighter more times I look. So most of them are still white, but just really pretty. I don't remember seeing any mountains of salt other than white piles, and they were artificial piles of salt that had been like dried out of the ocean and stuff. But now we have, so that if there's a bunch of weird colors of salt, I think it might be somewhat related to some of this, these new salt mountains. Anyway, more flavors of salt. I can get down with more flavors of salt. Blue Persian salt. Let me just check that out because that sounds so pretty. I have not heard of blue Persian salts. All right, so is it blue? Persian blue salts, made in Iran. Dun, dun, dun. So, what is it? Unique and rare mineral found in the mountain ranges of Iran. Formed from an ancient sea that dried out 110 million years ago. Buried over time, then compacted by the earth. All right, this is from bluesalts.com. I suspect that they are the purveyors of the salt, so they're going to make it sound good. We are importers of Persian blue salts and other specialty salts. We offer Persian blue salt, orange salt, pink Himalayan salt, red salt, edible salts, salt slabs, blue rock salt, and so much more. This is one of the only places in the world that has blue salt, Iran. Form, blah, blah, blah. Okay, where are we getting to? All right, they're not telling me what's making it blue. Blue color is a natural side effect of the magnesium present in the salt. The seabed was compacted to form tight crystal structure, forming blue salt. This compact magnesium structure refracts the blue light. This is what makes blue salt. A Persian blue salt collection Comes in a variety of grain sizes. Wow, I wonder if it costs $1 bajillion or not. No, it looks like it's pretty cheap, actually. 8 ounces of Persian blue salt, C11. I don't know what country we're in. Guess I could have just put .com on there. You know, if it really does have a lot of magnesium, that'll be pretty healthy. I mean, if it's enough magnesium to color it blue. Wow, there's not much on eBay, though. Yeah, I'm not seeing much here. Shopping. $13 on Etsy. Pacific blue. Wow, there's not much on the blue. I'm a little suspicious of this one because it might be just colored. This one says it's Persian blue plus 2 others, so this one might be legit. And the blue is not super blue, so they're probably less likely to be lying. Hawaiian and 2 flavors of Hawaiian plus Persian was $34, 60 grams. 60 grams, how much is that? 55 grams. That's not a ton. Huh, okay, so it doesn't look like it's really readily available yet. Iodine in bread and dairy products. Really? Iodine in bread. Ooh, is it jamming? Come on. Hopefully we're still live here. I'm gonna gamble that we are still live. Yes, it looks like we're all right. Okay, I think the black salt just has like charcoal and some other stuff in it. So blue salt has magnesium. That's cool. I don't think iodine's in bread, though. Let me see. In bread. Could have. Oh, you know what? I may be wrong. Oh, in Australia. Yeah. London. I don't think in America it is. I could be wrong, but I don't remember that being in America. It was breakfast. No, iodine. It was salt. It was salt was the source. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised magnesium there'd be enough to make it blue. It seems a bit weird. The color was not that blue. It makes sense, though. I mean, something from far away, just a little tinge of blue, a whole bunch of it will show. But then when you just have like that much, you're not going to notice the blue. It's a common problem with painters, too, because people get a little color swatch this big, and it doesn't look very dark. And then when you plaster it all over your wall, it looks way darker. So we try to warn people is like, look, dial it back on your little sample chip because it's going to look like a lot more once you stick it up there. In the Netherlands, it's in our bread, iodine. Yeah, I don't think it's here in the bread. Okay. Okay, this one's a little bit on the gross side. I've kind of covered this before. So I've covered before the eye in the mouth. But now it's gotten a little more sophisticated. So it's a whole the way they were talking about it. So it's called torus mandibularis. So it's like a whole structure now or something. Oh, we're gonna get this loading. So some places we're talking about like it's a whole structure. So tori are basically this torus. I just remember it being called tori. I don't remember it being called torus mandibularis last time I looked into it. So basically inside your mouth on the bottom part, if there's like extra bony growth, which is really weird, and they're saying it's in 50 to 40% of the population. So you would think that they'd have a better idea of how many people have it. That's huge range, and I'm very suspicious about that, as I often am with Mandelas. They come in and they're like, this is between 1 and 88% of the population. I mean, you know, like, you don't know. You haven't, like, this stuff's been around for hundreds of years, but you don't know what percentage of the population has them. I mean, the dentists should be able to nail that down right away, right? At least somewhere more clear than that. So torus. So that's one of the things, that it's between 7 to 10% of the population. Which, okay, so 10 people. Does one of them have creepy lumps on the bottom of their mouth between their teeth? I mean, I gotta know at least 50 people, and nobody has that. Like, nobody. None of the real humans I know have had that. I've never heard of it until like 2 years ago. So these are torus mandibularis. They're these giant lumps that grow inside the teeth. And some places now are talking as a whole structure. Like there's this whole extra, so this is extra bony growth. Look at that. So those are small ones, those are big ones. So they're saying it causes problems with the fitting of braces. Never heard of that. They also grow in the upper cavity of the mouth. So here's the upper cavity, and then it's called torus palatinus. Now I just remember all of it being tori. I don't think I remember it having a separate word up here. So way up in the roof of your mouth, way up there, people just grow these giant, creepy, tumorous looking lumps of bone, which is totally gross. I mean, look up there, that's creepy. Now, granted, you might not notice it up there visually, but you should be able to feel it with the tip of your tongue, and it should freak you out. Look at these. They look like tumors. It's totally gross. I mean, look at that thing. Okay, so they're saying that between 20 and 35% of people in the United States have torus palatinus. And then for mandibularis, it's 7 to 10% in the USA. There are some populations that have way more and some that way less. So I just did the USA population. But I mean, really, so between those two, we're looking at, 45% of the population having one or the other. Have you guys ever heard of this before a few years ago? A lot of new elements in the periodic table. Yep, we've talked about that one a lot. Miss Chrome Sticks is in. Welcome. Exodus 28:40 King James Version. Okay, let's go there. Always a bit of fun when I'm just clicking on something I have no idea what I'm going to find. Okay, yeah, that's weird. And for Aaron's sons thou shalt make coats. Okay. And thou shalt make for them girdles, and bonnets shalt thou make for them for glory and for beauty. Okay. Read full chapter. Yeah, that's weird. And thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron, thy brother, for glory and for beauty. For glory and for beauty. I don't remember that kind of talk really in the Bible. Glory and for beauty. Didn't used to talk a lot about, I don't remember any talk about beauty. Like, you could say somebody's beautiful, but I don't remember any talk about emphasizing that you should go for that. Or your glory, you have glory and beauty because you've got fancy garments. I don't remember any talk like that. Beauty was, in the soul. Things you did were beautiful if they were good. Glory was for being a good person, not for girdles and stuff. And thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, and that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. These are the garments they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, I don't know what that is, and a robe, and a broidered coat, a mitre, don't know what that is, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, and he may minister unto me in the priest's office. I do kind of remember a little bit about this for like Jesus, but that was about it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong on that. It just seems a little bit different tone than I'm used to hearing, though. Somebody said something about air viscosity, but then it jumped. Air viscosity increased. When walking with a shirt on, I can feel vortexes forming behind my back. I would not be surprised at all. I feel that the surface tension on the top of water is a lot stronger. Lizards can run on it now. Air viscosity, I think it would make sense if it's up, because you've got larger birds, birds that can carry really heavy things like small goats. Definitely do not have birds that could carry small goats in the air. Birds can carry other birds sitting on their back. Pigeons can carry a coat with a camera on it. That was another Mandela, that they used to put cameras on pigeons and get all this aerial photography and spy on enemy troops using pigeon cameras. I don't think I know none of that was in my old timeline. So somehow bigger birds can fly, and it would make sense if the air is somehow thicker. We've also talked about there being a lot more nitrogen in the air than we remember. I remember it being more than 50% oxygen, and now it's just tiny little bit oxygen. No man can live without his handbag. That's right. It's going to be in the Bible next. Chanty has the extra bony growth. I've been asking about my friends about their dental situation too. None have it. Looks like a non-human mouth. When they're big like that, if there was just a little bit of bump, it's not that weird, but those are pretty weird. No running to the mirror. Running to the mirror to see if you have the bones. I know I don't have them. The one thing I will say is, way back up in the upper quadrants of my mouth, you have to stick a mirror down there and then look in another mirror. It's very, there's like a weird pattern in there that kind of, if you looked at the top of a dog's mouth, it has kind of ridges. Those are there, but they're subtle and they're not like these tumorous lesions. And those I've seen in there for quite a number of years, like 5 years now. I don't remember those being there originally. The air viscosity might be linked to aeroplankton and the fantasy stories and people stepping on air. Yeah, I do think it's making it easier to do a lot of things. The plane wings are smaller than I remember. They're more raked back. It used to be really big wings. These big fat birds can stay aloft now. The other thing I've said before is I really feel like birds don't flap their wings as much. I remember birds flapping the whole time they were in the air. But now they almost like shoot along. They kind of go like that. They just one flap and then they shoot for a distance. And it almost is more like an underground creature shooting, or underwater creature shooting along. They don't have to flap the whole time. They just flap like half as much now. Literally a girl's night out on the Bible. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's way too much double entendre in the Bible. It's just like loaded with it. Then if you say, wait a minute, that sounds like something else, and they're, oh, you just have a dirty mind. It was like, no, everybody thought it. Come on, guys. Okay, so let's see what we're on now. Got you. Okay, so what's that little beast creature in the thumbnail? It is a vulture bee. You want the wiki. I covered these a little bit before. But you know what? It was like a slow week, so you get them again. So vulture bees known as carrion bees. So they're a bee that totally eats carrion, but then it takes the carrion and it makes honey out of it. So it makes honey out of rotting meat. It's called a vulture bee. Closely related to South American stingless bees. So I'm trying to remember what I said before. I don't remember them totally eating carrion, for starters. I think it was just more like meat. And I think it was just like a part-time thing, but that's all they eat now. They just eat carrion and they turn it into honey, which is just really like gross to think about, because vulture bees, much like maggots, usually enter the carcass through the eyes. They will then root around inside, gathering the meat suitable for their needs. The vulture bee salivates on the rotting flesh and then consumes it, storing the flesh in its special stomach compartment. When it returns to the hive, this meat is regurgitated and processed by a worker bee, which breaks the meat down into an edible substance resembling honey. The substance is then placed into pot-like containers within the hive until it's time to feed the immature bees. So, like, this is the world's tiniest wiki here, and I couldn't find out much information on this, but I have a feeling that we will find out more. Actually, I could click on maybe some of these links and see if there's anything of use on there. Nope, nothing on that one. Try this one. Nope, nothing. Okay, so keep an eye on that one, though. I'm very curious what comes of that. I saw a flying bug similar to a bee wasp, but it was golden and positioned as if it were standing with no noise. Never seen it before. Anyone know what that is? Can you get golden bees? There's so many kinds of things now, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's golden bees. So if it looked like a bee, you might want to check, like say I'm the San Diego area, I go San Diego golden bee or yellow bee and just see what comes up. Okay, as a company. What are the large golden bees flitting in Bay Area gardens? All right, so yeah, that looks big and golden. The male valley carpenter bee is a sight to see in the garden. It's about 1/3 the size of a hummingbird, far larger than any other bee, and it is harmless but important pollinator. So this was from 2020, May 2020. Big yellow fluffy bee flitting around a native willow in my garden. He's so huge I thought it was a small bird. I've had quite a few letters recently from people seeing these giant bees in their gardens, and that makes me happy. Yeah, so if these were normal for the gardens, they shouldn't get a lot of people asking. So the similar thing happened around here is like that weird weasel creature showed up. I've covered this before, and nobody ever heard of them. And then they're like, oh yeah, those have always lived here. They're rare. So about 6 months later, we found a dead one of those weasels. I'm pretty sure the cat maybe had a fight with it. And so they are here, these funky weasels. But we did not have any weasels because there was some weird animal I saw years ago, and I actually specifically looked up weasels and ferrets to see if we had any native of them, because I was trying to figure out what that other beast was. And we did not have any native weasels or ferrets at that time. So apparently these guys have always been around, but 10 years ago they were not here. Now the ones we have now, the weasel things we have now, do not look like the thing I was looking for back then, though. So I still have not deciphered the deal on those guys. The golden bee was scary to see. Yeah, well, it sounds like it's really big. So what is the name of these? Is the carpenter bee? It's valley carpenter bees. So if might want to check the regions for those and see if you're in them. Couldn't find it. I'm in Scotland. Oh, for the bees? Yeah, keep your eye open. There's been some weird creatures that I could not find, and then years later, the name of them showed up. I've said before there was this thing that looked like it looked like a snake, but it wasn't bendy enough. So it was like a lizard, but without feet. And it was just so bright. Like, it was bright turquoise, brighter than like this cap from this water. It was like super turquoise. And it was ridiculous. Like, and if you saw one, it looked like somebody had dropped some kind of garbage on the ground, like this cap, because it was completely artificial colored looking. But it was this weird snake, not snake thing. And I'd see them once in a while through the years. Like, I'd be weeding in the yard or planting, and one of these would wiggle off. And they kind of scared me because I didn't know what they are, and a lot of bright things are poisonous. But they had no legs. I got enough of a view of them to know they had no legs. And you couldn't really see a mouth on it, so it just kind of looked like a snake, but yet it wasn't. it didn't move like a snake. It moved more like a lizard. You know, it didn't like slither along. It just kind of flip flopped. So for years I tried to figure out what those was. The turquoise. It was neat. It's like freaking neon turquoise. So I'm like, how hard can it be to search this? Turquoise lizard, turquoise snake, turquoise reptile. I tried everything, couldn't find it. Tried it multiple times through the years. But now we have this like skink that has that exact same tail, but it's got feet and stuff. And so now that exact turquoise apparently is a skink. But I haven't seen these little creatures I saw before, so I don't know if they've turned into this skink with the turquoise. It's the exact same turquoise look on the tail of the skink. And I still haven't found the one I saw, but I haven't seen them in the last 10 years. So now I don't know what's up with those. I saw a video of a plane freezing in midair like it was buffering. Same with videos of birds. I just don't know what to think on those, because there is the argument that if it's coming right at you, maybe it just looks like it's not moving, but it is. At the same time, it's so easy to fake that kind of video now with CGI that you could just tell the computer to make it look like it's frozen. It's so easy now. So, if I saw it, then I would trust it more. But you really can't trust anything on video anymore. Neighbor saw a 6-inch wingspan moth last night. Yeah, I would not be surprised. They're just getting bigger and creepier, more colorful. Yeah, that's what it looked like to me, was a legless lizard. But there wasn't such a thing then, but that's what I called it. Now they do have those. But it was fast moving, too. But not like a snake moves. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure if those have morphed into these skinks. Because those skinks with the turquoise, I could not find those either. And they're supposed to be pretty common now. NASA now says there are worms on Mars. Okay, let's check that one out. I was wondering why I was seeing those spice must flow jokes. Earthworms reproduce in simulated Mars soil. A recent image beamed back from Mars has caused a great debate and confusion among believers. Alright, let's click on this one. I'm not really finding any better video on here. Alright, so it's not... So I don't see where NASA said there's a worm on Mars. It's just more of these, ooh, there's a weird image that could be a worm. This thing. To me, it looks more like a metal chunk, like a screw. Like a broken off length of screw. Maybe when they were doing their simulation, they dropped something. Images. So yeah, if you have a link where NASA says there are worms on Mars. Now, they could say NASA. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe said there could be worms on Mars. Get, kind of plant the idea. All right. Screen wrap. Let's go. I'll close that old one. Reveals tiny peculiar rock formation. Whimsical worm-like rocks were spotted on the Martian surface. So they're saying they're rocks that just happen to look like worms. There are multiple rovers, probes exploring the planet. How many are down there now? Last I heard there was the 2, but then they weren't really working anymore, and they landed another one. So there really should be 1 and maybe the other 2. I don't think there should be more than 2 down there that are working, that is. Okay, so this is... So I don't think they're admitting to any worms, and this really doesn't look worm-like to me. So I don't think we're there yet. Gulf of California still shows to be widening. Phoenix and Los Angeles seem closer. They could be Phoenix. I definitely think, let's just check this map thing out here. Say map. I feel like Texas has kind of gotten more easterly. I remember it being kind of on the same half of the United States as us in California here. Here, this map. Okay, I agree with you there. So this is kind of cut off, so it's hard to see how long it is. It looks like there's a wider space in here now. So this had been growing longer, but now it's widening. I mean, look, this chunk is like getting close to California size. It's about half the size of California now. I also feel like this Mexican border overall has gotten wider. Let's see. This will be better. All right, let's try. Oh, it's not easy to find the map I want. This one. Oh, yeah. All right, so it looks like it's... That does look longer also. It's not just wider, now that it's not cut off. So it looks like it's really pried open a lot over here. I think there's some more stuff on the end over here. All right, now let's talk about Phoenix and stuff. Phoenix and LA, Phoenix and San Diego. Yeah, how many miles is that? It does look like they're pretty close. Blythe is there. Yeah, Phoenix is not much further now than Blythe. I really can't swear on that one, but I do think overall a lot of the United States is getting smaller. But I don't remember this border being so Byzantine here. And I feel like Texas is kind of, I don't know, the other areas are, I think like maybe the other areas are shrinking and Texas not so much. You look at the end of Texas, it's down here at the end of Florida now. Now, I remember Florida having a big knob and being the biggest knob by far. I don't remember Texas being just as long. Why, there's not any halfway on there, is there? Feels like these states above California are still getting bigger compared to California. Mexico, I think, has just gotten fatter. It's got more stuff to it. You know, it's twirled around over here. It looks like it's like a dolphin or something. It's got a dolphin paddle to it. See, it's got all this stuff over here. So it used to just come out and then just there'd be kind of a straight attachment to South America. But now it curls around a lot. Yeah, I totally agree with you on this Gulf, though. It's like way bigger. It's longer and it's wider, especially over here at the mouth. The birds keep flapping their wings, but they stay in place. I don't know if you guys have seen the video where the birds, I don't remember them being able to do this. They'd hold their head totally still and their body goes all around, but their head is absolutely perfectly still. And I don't remember that until like this last year, maybe. It's really creepy if you watch those videos. Maybe I should just try to find one. That might be what you were talking about when you said that. Canada is sinking to the East Coast more and more every year, so I agree with that. Used to have a flat border on the top. I definitely agree with that. U.S. map is melting. Zone of silence. Yes, I have covered that one. All right. See if we can find a video of that weirdness. Okay, this is an example. I think I first started seeing them this way, where they just showed they'd move the body and the head would stay still. But they can do the same thing when they actually fly. Let's just turn that off. We don't need that. Okay, so that's an example of it. So when there's now videos when they're flying that they do that. So it's even more striking when they're flying because the body will be jiggling all around kind of violently and the head will be perfectly still. See if I can find some more video. So yeah, some of these, it started with those handheld ones. Okay, not seeing the flight ones. The flight ones are even more creepy though. It'd be too hard to find them. God, there's some weird birds now. Look at these things. It looks like a dog bird. I saw this strange looking bird sitting on a bench in the park. Huh. What is that? I know it kind of looks like a person almost, like a half person, half bird. Yeah, I don't know what that thing is. Okay, it doesn't say in the comments either, so not helping. Patu is very weird looking bird, yep. The Three Gorges Dam is going down. You know, I remember there was some kind of prophecy that the Three Gorges Dam would go down and then there'd be like, what, the end of the world or something. So if that does go down, I'm going to know that something's happening. There's been a lot of flooding lately, too. Yeah, definitely a Twilight Zone feeling. Yep. Especially the last few years. Why would a baby have eyebrows? Stuck on your head. I don't know. You know, it's Hollywood. They're weird. Okay, so did those vulture bees. So the last one is, I covered this before, but it has changed since then. Remember Steve, the aurora borealis called Steve? So a few years ago, it was everywhere that they had discovered a new type of aurora borealis. It was like this stick-like shape. And they said, we're calling it Steve. And it was like, so ha ha ha, let's just be silly and call it Steve. So they were saying it was new, but now, first of all, Steve has been spotted since 1705 now. And it was named in 2016. So I swear it's only been like a few years. And did I even know about? I don't think I even knew. 16. I just learned about the Mandela in 2016. And I don't think that Steve was that far back. I really remember hearing maybe just 2 years ago. Just a little bit before the Rona maybe. 3 years max. 5 years, no. So now that's what they're saying, that Steve has been known since 1705, and it was named in 2016. And so now Steve is an acronym for Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement. So Steve was not an acronym for me when it first came out, like 3 years ago. It was just Steve, we're so funny, let's call it Steve. And it's no longer another type of aurora borealis anymore. It's an atmospheric optical phenomena that appears as purple and green light ribbon in the sky, named in late 2016 by aurora watchers in Canada. Steve is caused by a 16-mile wide ribbon of hot plasma at an altitude of 450 kilometers or 280 miles. So now you remember I talked about, like, I don't remember all this plasma story. They used to say, oh, there's electrons, but now it's moved from electrons to excited electrons to plasma. So Steve is plasma now. It's not just an aurora borealis, it's plasma. The phenomenon is not rare, but had not previously been investigated. So all the time they have these, but nobody investigated them. Yeah. Has been absorbed in by auroral photographers for decades. May have been recorded as early as 1705. All right. An accurate representation of what it was not made until members of a group called Alberta Aurora Chasers named it, attributed it to a proton aurora, and called it a proton arc. So it's not just another aurora borealis now. Now it's a proton aurora called a proton arc. But then somebody else said, no, it's not a proton aurora because those aren't visible. Okay, so we got a little more of the story. He correlated the time and location of the phenomena with the swarm satellite. All right, I'm still not seeing what it is, though, because he's... So this skeptic is saying, well, proton arcs aren't visible. But then he's not saying he agrees it's a proton arc or not. So this is kind of a weird... All right, so Steve appears as a very narrow arc extending for hundreds of thousands of miles, aligned east-west. Steve generally lasts for 20 minutes to an hour. Okay, so this is not just like one wiggly transient phenomena. Steve has only been spotted in the presence of an aurora, but yet they're saying Steve is not an aurora. Steve accompanies a subarauroral ion drift, SAID, a fast-moving stream of extremely hot particles. Researchers determined in 2018 that the sky glow of the phenomena was not associated with particle precipitation, and as a result could be generated in the ionosphere. It's also associated with picket fence aurora. Those are kind of cool, so I'm going to look those up real quick. So anyway, it's not exactly an aurora, but it usually shows up with an aurora. It's not rare. It's been around since at least 1705. It was named 5 years ago. All of those are suspicious to me. And so here's picket fence aurora, which I also don't remember seeing those, except for since Steve. I do remember seeing those since Steve. So this is picket fence aurora, which, you know, you can see why it looks like a picket fence. It looks like a fence. Picket fence aurora there. Another one over here. But sometimes picket fence auroras happen without Steve, so they're not like locked together. I don't remember that kind of aurora before 2 years ago either. What's going on with elephant? Elephant boobs have been on before, so I'm not going to show another photo of those because you never know when the censors will get crabby about seeing a boob, even if it's on an elephant. But yes, those look so wrong, and I've had those on. Steve came out in 2021. Never heard of it before that. Yeah, it's 5 years is too old. Don't look up elephant boobs at work. I agree with that. So yeah, just watch what you type in there. You type that word too much, they'll suspend the video. I can ask them to manually review it, but I don't know if any manual reviews are actually happening anymore these days. Yeah, so I've definitely done the elephant parts. If you type that in with the words that we just said in a Google, you will find them. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. I'm done. Oh, the one other thing about Steve that I thought was really weird is it says These phenomena appear in both hemispheres simultaneously. I've not heard of that before. So they're saying there's Steve on the northern hemisphere, then there's going to be an identical Steve on the southern hemisphere. And they last for 20 minutes. So I don't know where we're going with that, but it's kind of interesting. I don't know how people don't see it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how people don't see it with the arm pokes, and they don't see the contradictions there. They don't see the changes in reality. What was the one I saw recently? I was talking to somebody. So in the Bible, it says the days will be shortened. And so there was a synopsis of different opinions by experts wondering what that would mean. So one of the experts said, it could be just meaning that more will happen in a day and the day will seem shorter or something like that. Like it'll seem like that way. And another one said, well, no, maybe it's literal and the days will actually be shortened. But they go, well, we haven't seen any evidence of that yet, but maybe in the future it'll happen. And I wanted to facepalm them, like, you haven't seen any evidence of the days shorter. It's like these are the experts expounding on the Bible, and they don't see it. I don't know. It just made me laugh, because that next time I hear experts, I'm just going to think of stuff like that, like, it's right there in front of your face, but maybe in the future that'll happen. The shorter the better. I'm at my breaking point. Yeah, I don't know. I hope we get through it. I want to see more positive stuff. It'll make me happy. I mean, it makes sense that the elephants have those. They just never had them. I mean, think about it. Elephants are big animals. They could store a lot of milk without having a lot of extra flesh. It's just not necessary. They always managed it before. I don't know if they, stored it back in their chest more, or they just would make it really fast. I don't know, but they didn't have those before. I mean, if you look at like dogs, they've got like 8 or 10 puppies and they hardly have any boob. And somehow they managed to make enough milk for all those little beasts. And how big a puppy is compared to the mom is sometimes a lot. And then elephants only have like one child, so people are blind, hypnotized. Yeah, I know, eyes to see and ears to hear. The exact saying is not in the Bible anymore, but the meaning is still there. You have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and I guess a lot of people just don't have it. All my family ran out and got plugged into the hive. Most people are in a similar boat, especially with the Mandela. People don't see it. They act like you're crazy. So I don't know, what can you do? It's kind of hard, and I agree. People don't even see when they have contradicting memories. I know. They can say it the old way, and 5 seconds later they'll say the new way, and they don't even remember saying the old way. They don't want to talk about it. Well, anyway, you've all heard that all stuff. So just got to stick it out. Think about the good stuff is always a good idea. I know it's freaky, but, there's still a lot of good stuff. You still have food, water, shelter. You still have people you care about, probably. Just look for the good stuff as much as you can. I mean, everybody's got different challenges, but, most of us have good things also in our lives. I mean, they might be perfect, and there's going to be stuff we want to improve, but it does help if you kind of try to look at the good stuff, work on plans to get better improvement in certain areas. Imagine a life you want to get and what that would be like, and kind of flesh it out in your mind and see if you can shift to those timelines, because there's an old saying, you get what you concentrate on. So if you spend all of your time thinking about the crappy stuff in life, it's probably not the best idea. And even conventional science says you live longer and healthier if you try to keep a more positive outlook. And that is not to say that you don't recognize problems and threats and those things. It's just don't dwell on them excessively. You know, process it in your mind, understand it's there, but don't spend all your time thinking about it, because it's just not healthy, and it kind of sucks out your life force, you know. All right, so anyway, there's the diatribe for today. Thanks for coming, everybody. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.